when we think about, well, how do we serve the many? Capability must be built at the leader level by building, to your point, the leaders think to drive capability.
Mm-hmm.
And we do that, Reg, through 3 building blocks. We do that through see, know, and do. And I think you're going to hold up a picture for us, right? And that picture represents the leader and all of the synapses and the connections that leader makes when they're doing their leadership work. And at Rejuvi, we organize those connections into 3 building blocks: see, know, and do. So let's talk about what each of those building blocks are. C is really how the leader, Reg, forms their perspectives and their ideas.
Yeah.
Know is how they then seek to understand the world around them and how some of those ideas land on other people that they work with or they partner with or have to work through to get results.
That's right.
And do is how that leader then begins to figure out, well, what works and what doesn't work. It's the observable actions that that they take to provide direction to those that they lead.
Mm-hmm. I've heard you describe this to many leaders over time, to many organizations over time. And I've also, heard you create so much understanding, not only in this see, know, do, that's how you build this think to drive capability for leaders, but you have some shorthands for it that I think are a lot of fun. It's sort of like helping the leader to ready, aim, and to fire.
Right.
And another shorthand that I've heard you use is it's about the leader's IQ and the leader's EQ and the leader's AQ, or agility quotient. So I love those shorthands that I've seen you use with leaders and organizations all over the place to help them to understand these basic building blocks of this continuum. I love it.
Yeah, I do too, and super helpful, right? To just have some different ways to think about it, and I think we can take the next step too and understand that these building blocks, Reg, are comprised of leadership competencies and behaviors that support exceptional leadership, and while the competencies and behaviors are specific to each leadership role, they move elegantly across those roles on the leadership bench. And it gets us to this space of simple elegance and how we can build that capacity in a really unique way.
That's right.
Yeah, which then led me to say, well, really? Because how does that work? How can we help people kind of understand what an example might look like? So we're just going to go through one. We're going to take a look at a competency and how that competency sort of grows up across the different leadership roles. So we're going to hop into the C construct, and an important aspect of that construct, or we call them building blocks as well, is about the industry and how does the leader really understand the industry within which they work. So for the team leader, that shows up in a competency called industry awareness. And that's all about the team leader's ability to recognize patterns and trends of their business space. Mm-hmm. It's about them understanding what's impacting my line or what's impacting my team. Mm-hmm. And then for the service leader, that shows up as a competency called industry insight. And it's all about the service leader's ability to understand the dynamics of their business space. Mm-hmm. What's happening that's impacting the customer, and subsequently, what's happening that then is impacting their business.
That's right.
And Rich, for the sales leader, it shows up also as the same competency as industry insight, Again, the ability to understand the dynamics of the business space, but for the sales leader, the business space is different than a service leader. It's all about, well, what's happening in my sales territory? What's happening with the competitors in my sales territory? Are there new competitors? Do some of my existing competitors have new product offerings? How are they talking to
what kind of market share? What kind of market share do they have? Yeah.
What's happening? How's that impacting my clients? What's really going on? And then as we move to the senior leader, it's all about then, hold on just a second. I just lost my camera, Reg.
That's okay. I'll continue on, and then you can jump in as soon as you're there. So we're really talking about competencies, and we're talking about a simple way to make it elegant across the C construct. And if we move to our senior leaders, it's really about analytic insight, right? And so analytic insight is the most, if you would, kind of grown up level of this industry sort of competency, because the senior leader now has to not only understand patterns and trends inside of their own industry, they also have to take a look at patterns and trends across industries because of how complex organizations actually are today.
Absolutely. And so then I think that leads us to this question, Reg. How is this relevant for the leader, right? What does this really look like? Well, we can use those building blocks, see, know, and do, to help all leaders learn what exceptional looks like for their role. And then to provide better modeling for leader growth, like more targeted development for each one of the leaders in their specific role, so that they can develop in the way that they need to ultimately drive those capability pieces that we need them to drive. I mean, can you feel it? Can you feel those different nutrients in the soil for each leadership role, and the nutrients, of course, that are specific to the role, but how they're very elegantly tied together for all who are paid to lead in the organization?